React 19.2 is finally here, and honestly, it fixes some of the most annoying problems that we've had to face with React over the years. You know those bugs where your useEffect keeps rerunning for no reason? Well, guess what? They are fixed now. Or we have more caching capabilities and some of the most powerful features available in React 19.2. You also get performance debugging, which was really hard to figure out now in DevTools. So there's a lot that React 19.2 covers. So in this specific video, I want to walk you through 5 brand new features in React 19.2 that makes your app feel faster, cleaner, and easier to debug. And trust me, once you see these, you'll wonder how you ever build apps without them. So let's take a look. So if you take a look at all the features in 19.2, there are quite a few new features. There are some React DOM features, as well as some notable changes that improve your overall developer experience. So let's take a look at them one by one. So the new React features, the first one is activity. It lets you break your app into activities that can be controlled and prioritized. You can use activity as an alternative to conditionally rendering parts of your app. With is visible, what's happening is you're either hiding or showing that specific page, and that will basically get rid of anything that's there in the DOM whenever is visible is false. That means the minute it's true, it's going to redo all the work. That can be a performance hit. Versus with activity has a mode called as is visible, visible, or hidden, which means that hidden will hide the children, unmount effects, and defer all updates until React has nothing left to work on, which is huge. Versus visible will show the children, mount effects, and allow updates to be processed normally. So this means you can pre-render and keep re-rendering the hidden parts of your app without impacting the performance of anything visible on your screen. So you could use activity to render hidden parts of the app that the user should not see yet, but you know that it's predictable next step to them. Maybe the user will likely navigate to it and so on. Then you want to show that. A best example for this is Netflix. Now we are watching a show and we are towards the end of our episode. It's, let's say, a TV show, it's a season, and we want to move to the next episode very soon. So in that case, I would use activity for rendering the next episode, but keep it hidden. This way, the minute the user presses play next episode or play episode 2 or whatever that button might be, then it is instant. User doesn't have to wait, thus improving the overall user experience and the performance of Netflix as well. So that's one area where activity can definitely be used. So without further ado, let's take a look at an example. So now I have this Factlets repo wherein I have created a few examples for us. What you see here is in fact in here as well. It uses Vite with React, so it's a very simple app. First thing what we see is the settings panel. Now, if you take a look at the settings panel, when you toggle the settings, it shows the input box. If you click on toggle again, disappears. Now, with settings old, let's see what happens. Let's use that first. If you take a look at the code, it simply has this button, toggle settings, and it has that toggle that we mentioned, show settings, true or false, and then it shows the setting panels or not. And setting panels is literally this specific input box. And now when you click on toggle settings, it shows the item or not. A better example would be, let's open up developer tools and head over to components. And now you can see settings panel old. Let's click on toggle settings. We do see settings panel. If I turn it off, settings panel is gone from the DOM. So that's a typical behavior with true or false values. It re-renders and renders and so on. But now let's try it with activity. And what I have here is settings panel new. And if we go here, it in fact has this activity modes already defined. So if show settings, it's visible, otherwise it's hidden. And then we are rendering the settings panel. Again, the same settings panel here with input. So if we go back here and let's refresh the page one more time. And now you will see settings panel new here. Now if I press toggle settings, you will see the input box. But now watch what happens in the DOM when I turn it off. So when I toggle it off, it's still there. That means we don't have to redo the work because it's still there. And that's the power of activity. This is just one small example, but as I described it with Netflix, you could use something similar as well. The next feature we have is useEffectEvent. Now, one common pattern with useEffect is to notify the app code about some kind of events from an external system. Now, this is one of the most annoying things about useEffect, which is that, for example, this is a very good case wherein we have a connection, we are creating a connection, and this is a chat room. Now, theme has nothing to do with the chat room connection. All it decides if it's in dark mode or light mode or what messages you want to show to the user. Let's say for some reason you want to show the theme in this specific chat room as well. Maybe you want to display some type of notification here. When the connection is on or off, the problem with the above code is that a change to any of the values used inside such an event will cause the surrounding effect to rerun. Which means that because we have this theme, the fact that this changes, this entire effect is going to change as well, which means that the user is going to get reconnected again. And that is really annoying with use effects in general. To solve this, what most of us do is that we disable the lint rule or we exclude a dependency. But if you exclude a dependency, we encounter a lot of unexpected bugs, which we really don't want. Which in that case, what we could do is use something called as useEffectEvents for functions that are conceptually events that happen to be fired from an effect instead of a user event. What we could do is, again, let's take a look at an example here. So we have chatroom before and chatroom after. Let's just go ahead and comment this code out. And let's also uncomment this as well. So first off, you will see that we have this theme, set theme, which could be light or dark. By default, it's light. Then we have this button that just says toast high, and then it sets the theme to be light or dark. Then we are going to pass that specific theme inside chatroom before with room ID general. And this is what it does. It basically has the same create connection. It creates like a dummy chat room. And whenever it's connected, it's going to send a toast notification saying it's connected. And also in the theme, it's going to describe what theme it is. And on return, it's going to disconnect. So if we go back here, let's refresh the page. And I can see by default, it sent a notification saying that it's connected. Now when I press this, notification dark, high. Again, when I press it again, I got a high notification. That means it got reconnected. And that's why it said hi and then connected again. So what's happening is even though I'm toggling this specific theme, our chat room is reconnecting and connecting, which is not the ideal behavior. And that is where something like useEffectEvent definitely helps. For example, I'm going to comment this out now, and then we have the after example. And what after does is that it wraps the toast in a useEffectEvent, and on connected is what we pass in. Now, same idea, right? We're still showing connected message and we are still passing the theme. However, the value that is sort of unrelated could be like wrapped in the specific useEffectEvent. Now, as we do, let's go back here. Let's refresh the page. We got connected light, which is exactly what we want. And now when I press toggle theme, it just printed the message hi, current light, again, just hi. There is no reconnected over and over again that it was doing. That means it kept the chat room connected, but it allowed us to toggle the theme from dark to light. So theme has no connection with chat room. The only connection it has is that it changes the UI maybe. And that should not necessarily re-render the chat room itself. So useEffectEvents does help us with that. Now, one thing to keep in mind is you don't need to wrap everything in a useEffectEvent or use it to silence the lint error, as again, it can lead to bugs. But what you need to definitely do is whenever you want to mix reactive logic with non-reactive logic, you want to consider something like this. So my advice would be that whenever you are tempted to suppress the dependency linter anytime, that's where you should consider using something like useEffectEvent. That's a really good reminder for that. Or anytime you're mixing non-reactive state with reactive state, that's another indicator for where you should be using useEffectEvent. Post really covers all the different use cases, but again, make sure to check it out. Now, there are some limitations as well in terms of how you can use them. So you can only call them from inside effects. Never pass them to other components or hooks, or don't declare and pass an effect event like this, for example. So there are definitely some limitations that you need to be aware of, but overall, this is a really handy little hook. The next feature is cacheSignal. The cacheSignal is only for use with React Server components. If you ever click around a page quickly and your server keeps fetching stuff you will never see, React 19.2 finally fixes that on the server with cacheSignal. Say I want to watch a show on Netflix and suddenly I change my mind and I want to watch some other show. But I have already requested and tried to fetch data for the first show. So React tells Netflix that, hey, the user wants something new, so let's cancel the old one. But the problem that it solves is that when React Server component starts rendering a page, it may kick off multiple fetches. The user navigates again or switches path, the old render is abandoned. Without cancellation, those in-flight requests will keep going, which will waste bandwidth, time, and server work. And that is where cacheSignal comes in play. You picked a new episode. cacheSignal is how React tells the server, stop buffering the old episode, focus on the new one. So cacheSignal, what it does is it gives you a abort signal tied to the lifetime of the current server render, pass it to the fetch, and if React abandons that render, it aborts that request automatically. So you could cancel in-flight requests using that. So that is a pretty cool feature, especially if you're trying to make some heavy requests, heavy calls, then you can definitely use cacheSignal for that. The next React feature is performance tracks. Now, it adds a new set of custom tracks to Chrome DevTools Performance tab about the performance of your React application. This is one complaint I always had with React DevTools, wherein performance wasn't clear, but now as the diagram describes, you can see render, what's blocking, how long is transition taking, suspense, and all of that, which is really cool. So you will know exactly where the bottleneck might be and be able to resolve it quickly. I'm so happy that the next feature is now in fact in React, because Next.js has had this feature for a very long time, wherein there is now a new capability to pre-render parts of the app ahead of time. That's called partial pre-rendering. It allows you to pre-render static parts of your app and serve it from the CDN because it's ready, it's fast, and then resume rendering the shell to fill in all the dynamic content later. The fact that this is already there in React 19.2, it is just so freaking cool, because now you can just pre-render your app to resume later. So this is how it works. So to pre-render an app to resume later, first we need to call prerender with this function with an abort controller, which just like this, and then save the postpone state for later. Then you can return the preload shell to the client and later resume to an SSR stream. Just like that. Now, I must admit that in Next.js, if you just add suspense boundaries around it or like loading the TSX file, that itself will take care of partial pre-rendering. So that definitely feels a lot simpler than this example. However, the fact that it's out there, I'm very happy that React itself is shipping partial pre-rendering, which is pretty freaking cool. So alongside that, there are quite a few notable changes that overall improve our developer experience. For example, a couple of bugs were fixed for suspense boundaries for SSR. There's some explanation there. WebStream support for Node. So now we have a few new functions that are available for Node. There is a ESLint plugin React Hooks v6.1 out with flat config by default. And you can opt in for new React compiler powered rules as well, which again, feels like we are going in the right direction. Plus, take a look at the changelog just to see all the other improvements that have been made in React 19.2. So overall, this release is definitely really awesome. There are quite a few exciting hooks and changes that have been made to just make React better overall. So it's definitely going to be very useful. So thanks so much for watching. Comment down below and let me know if there is a specific feature in React 19 that you would like me to cover. What is your favorite feature? Comment down below and let me know. Let's discuss. As next steps, definitely check out this video where I interviewed Dan Abramov, one of the creators of React. He has had a huge influence in the React community, and we talked a lot about React Server components, what's coming up in React 19, what he's excited about, the future of React. But not only that, we also talk about burnout and Next.js and a lot of other things that are incredibly valuable to hear for every React developer. Make sure to check it out here. All right, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.